everyone. I'm your host, Patty Giarusso, and this is Let's Talk Pets on Society Bites Radio. Today, we welcome back Kathy Poblowski from Lost Dogs of America. And on today's show, we're going to talk about dog napping and people that find pets and decide that they're going to keep them. We talked about it before, but we're going to get into it a little more. And, we always hope that when somebody finds a lost pet, they're going to do the right thing and give it back. But lately, there seems to be an increase in people deciding that they're going to keep them, and even rescues are keeping found pets. So it's going to be a little controversial maybe, but we're going to talk about it. So welcome to the show, Kathy.
Thanks for having me, Patty. It's good to talk to you again.
Yeah, so we've both had recent experiences lately with some of these issues. I've had actually 5 stolen pets and had police involvement in 3 of them. 2 have been returned and 1 still hasn't, but it's kind of scary that I'm seeing it more and more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad that your police are willing to get involved, because that's really helpful, I think,
Yeah. It is, because it was the minute they made the phone call, then the person decided they better give it back. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's part of the problem, is a lot of people don't even realize that it is against the law to keep, a pet that you found. And so when police come a knocking, then they realize, oh my gosh, I wasn't supposed to do that. And then, most people then decide to do the right thing.
Right. Yeah. We had 3 of them that had police involvement. There was a cat, there was a dog, and there was a tortoise. So,
wow.
Yeah. So the lady with the tortoise, she called her vet, and she's going to get it microchipped.
Oh, I didn't know they did. Oh, that's cool.
I didn't either. She said, I guess in its leg or something is what she told me. Yeah. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. And so somebody found the tortoise and wanted to keep it?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I know.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, wow. Well, that's what we find a lot of the times, is that when somebody finds an animal and then becomes emotionally attached to it, that's when there's problems, because they become emotionally attached to the dog. They really like the dog or the cat, or maybe, in this case, the tortoise. And then they almost become deceptive about, the whole situation.
Mm-hmm.
Or try to convince people that the dog was abused, and
right.
that the owners don't deserve it back,
Yeah.
And that's often not the case.
Right.
So when they quickly become emotionally attached, that can be really tough, because then they can do all sorts of deceptive things to prevent the animal from getting back home.
Yeah. It's just I don't even know how to make it better, other than just continue to try to talk about it and hope people do the right thing. But I have to wonder, when I see so many, especially the little ones, like right now we've got several lost Yorkies, and you just imagine that any cute little puppy or dog is going to, oh, look at what I found. Why don't we just keep it? The person didn't take care of it, and so we're going to keep it,
Right, absolutely. And I think it's hard too, because little dogs, whether you are purchasing them from a pet store or adopting them from a rescue, they can be pretty expensive now. So, it's lucrative to either just keep the dog for yourself, because then you don't have to go out and pay an adoption fee or a purchase price, or to sell the dog to somebody and see if you can get some money for them.
Yeah.
It's you're right. It's very, very frustrating, and it just seems like it's probably going to get worse before it gets better, because there's just so much education to be done.
Right.
And we even struggle with some of our police departments, and some of them, granted, are very busy, and they've got probably far more serious things to investigate. But I also believe it's kind of like the whole broken window strategy. If you start to nip some of the smaller stuff in the bud, you probably won't have the bigger things to deal with, because people will realize that you can't just take somebody else's stuff.
Right. Well, I guess even though it's a live thing, a live being,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, they don't, even though it is considered property and it's theft, sometimes, I know when people call, they'll kind of get put off and, oh, it's a civil matter, but it isn't. It's theft. And I
Yeah.
always tell people, you have to be firm but very polite when,
Yeah.
you make that phone call, and you have to be insistent, and they will help you. They will,
Yeah.
at least here they are. They're helping,
Yeah.
and it makes a huge difference because I'm telling you, those last three animals probably wouldn't have been returned otherwise, even though the
Right.
person was known and there was a ton of evidence.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that if the officers involved didn't help, that it wouldn't have happened.
It wouldn't have happened. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Well,
Yeah.
kudos to them for doing that, and
Yeah.
yeah, and we are getting more cooperation. So it has gotten, that part of it has gotten better, but we do still have some of the police departments that just say, oh, it's a civil matter and we're not going to get involved, which is,
Hmm.
like you said, that's just not true. It's
Yeah.
somebody's property. So,
And one of the detectives, she mentioned to me that, it's, as we're always talking about the microchips and making sure your information's up to date, she just could not stress to me that in the case of this cat, the cat it was not microchipped. It did not have any caller ID, but the cat was a polydactyl. It had extremely distinct markings, so there was no disputing this cat, based on the
mm-hmm.
pictures. And the owner had a lot of pictures. The cat was 14 years old,
uh,
so because of that, they could get the cat back. But the detective said to me, if that cat had just been like a tabby cat or something, your
right.
everyday millions of them out there kind of
Yeah.
cats, maybe she wouldn't have been able to help her, because without that microchip, she goes, a microchip is like a social security number for your pet,
Yeah.
and they enter it into their police system, whatever that was called, just like, a VIN number on a car. And
Wow.
so it becomes an actual case, and it has a number, and it's a real theft at that point. But it made a huge difference, she said, to have a microchip if you were trying to get a warrant or something like
Mm-hmm.
that. A judge
Yeah.
is going to be more apt to do that if it goes that far,
Yeah.
So
Yep.
that's another good reason that we always stress to get your pet chipped and make sure it's up
Mm-hmm.
to date.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Huh. The something you said there just twigged an idea in my head, and now it's flown out again. Um, but yeah, so we've had uh, some people say, okay, well, microchip is supporting evidence of ownership, but it's not actually proof of ownership. But like you said, I just think it's so so helpful that when you actually have that number, that
Yeah.
you have something to say, okay, that is my cat, or that is my dog.
Yeah, and
So,
maybe having that number, and then, I mean, even going in, because most of the microchip companies have the portals or whatever. You can go online, or you can make the phone call and talk to somebody, and just maybe very, like, every 6 months, go in there and do something, update it, make it known
yeah,
that, yeah, that's my pet. I've
yeah,
just updated it, because otherwise, if they're questioning that, then I think maybe that's a helpful tip. I don't know, but
hmm yeah,
it is scary when, well, I have heard that before, that just because it's chipped, but I don't know. I think it's a way important thing, and this detective felt that it was as well.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's good. That's really
Yeah.
good. Um, so, what do you do when you have somebody that's obviously trying to keep a pet from the owner, and the police won't get involved? Do you have any tips?
And they
Because I
won't
could
get
sure use,
involved?
yes,
Well,
I could sure use
well,
some.
well, what happens here, you're dealing with an entire state, and we're dealing
Mm-hmm.
in a county, a two county area. So people get really like involved and sometimes a little over the top. But I mean, generally the members pretty much, they're going to be like, I'm going to their house. Here's their address. Like they'll start posting like up a storm that they're going to, get involved in help. And,
Okay.
It's sometimes it gets a little crazy,
Yeah.
but, I mean, I'm not one to give up. I will just keep trying.
Mm-hmm.
I have been very fortunate, I think, because we do have the officers here that are willing to help us. In our
Yeah.
other county, their animal control is part of the sheriff's department. So, that's kind of already part of the whole animal control is the sheriffs are involved. So, it is it is if you don't get that help. It is. And short of, I mean, really short of people on this one, it came down to public shaming. They were, publicly shaming the person. They actually put up I saw one post that they put up his business name and, I mean, they
Wow.
were just, oh yeah, they were all over it. So,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know, I don't think that would have helped in that case because that guy was not going to give that dog back until
Wow.
that. And he even
Wow.
told the detective when he got the call that he wasn't giving it back, but he ended up giving it back. So,
And why did he think he was entitled to the dog?
oh, because in that case there was a rescue involved, and the rescue told him, and they came to the conclusion that the dog wasn't taken care of. Now, here's a dog that escaped from a car when its senior citizen owner stopped to get gas. So he wasn't near his home. He was traveling back home from Canada and the dog got out and he wasn't able to catch it. So it had been in this area for like a week. And of course, after
Mm-hmm.
a week's time with a long-haired dog, it's going to look a mess. And it rained every single day. So it was probably muddy. It was probably hungry. It probably looked like it was starving. So they decided that the owner was a bad owner and he didn't need the dog back. But so in this case too, I mean, they did everything they could to try to make that out that way. They actually took the dog to the vet. They got it microchipped to this rescue and lied to me when I asked about it. And so it was something, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was really something.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. We've had that situation more than a couple of times where it's an adopted dog, and either sometimes there's still like a tag on the collar where a rescue has put a tag on the collar, or they have kept themselves the primary contact on the microchip, and they have been who the microchip company contacted or the finder contacted, and gone and picked up the dog and had no intention of returning it, to the owner. Even to the point of, like, one owner was spending hundreds of dollars flyering, gas money, doing everything right, making signs. And the dog was found within probably a couple of hours of when it went missing. And the rescue had no intention of telling the owner that they had found the dog and we were taking it back into the rescue and we're not going to give it back.
wow.
And we did get that dog back, because that was totally inappropriate,
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so, and just think of how cruel that is to put the person through that,
Right.
that the dog has been found and they were just going to let them carry on looking. Those people would probably still be looking for that dog,
Right.
if we hadn't kind of caught wind that they had found the dog and had taken it back into rescue.
Right. Right. Yeah, so I mean, in the case of this dog, he wasn't chipped, but he was wearing a collar with a tag that went back to a humane society. And so all it would have taken, because that county